I'm John Oscathar. It is December 10, 2022, and I'm at the home of Charles Miller visiting with him because he is one of the members of the 1957 Tompkinsville Bear basketball team that went to the state tournament. And that is the last boys team from Monroe County that advanced to the state tournament. We've had a couple since then, Tompkinsville and Gamania, that made it to the region championship. And we had a girls team in 1996 that advanced to the Sweet 16, but the last team from Monroe County that actually, boys team that went to the Sweet 16 was the 1957 Tompkinsville team. Mr. Miller, we appreciate you visiting with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to start before 1957, though, if you don't mind. We'll go all the way back to, I believe you grew up in Rock Bridge. You might tell us who your parents are and just a little bit about growing up out in the northern end of Monroe County.
Well, actually, my parents, Josh and Doris Miller, my dad was a Baptist minister, and he never was really that sold on athletics until I started getting a lot of publicity, and then he kind of got involved in it. But he never did come to see me play because he thought it was against the church's rules of that. So he did come and see me play when I was at Lindsey Wilson. He came up and watched me play one game, and he was really enthused about it. So it really made me feel good. So that was in 1960-61. Rock Bridge, of course, I had a real close friend in Rock Bridge, James Chapman, who got the name Moon Man. And we was about 3 or 4 of us, James Chapman and Danny Carter and Morris Hume. We all kind of hung together, and we were Monroe Countyans. And of course, Danny and James played on the 1957 team, and but Morris never did play athletics. Of course, Rock Bridge got his name supposedly from a solid rock bridge in which people would walk across and travel across, and it was really a place that had a lot of athletes that came out of there. It had, of course, all the Millers, the Doc Miller family, and had all my brothers. And so Rock Bridge always was known for athletics. And we had a basketball court which had 2 goals, like a gymnasium, back and forth down at Joe Harrison Carter's home down at about a mile out of Rock Bridge. So we all would meet down there and play on Sundays. So I got quite a bit of experience playing against older people, and we all always enjoyed it. And usually we do that on Sunday afternoons.
So you said you had 2 goals.
Yeah.
Went from end to end on that.
Played from end to end, so we were used to a gymnasium, I guess. It would surprise you, but the floor, we had played on it so much, it was kind of like a wood floor. It was that slick,
but it was outdoor.
It was outdoors, and it was I don't know how many feet apart, but it's pretty long ways. So it was a real nice facility, if you want to call it that. And we'd play down there where it was raining or whatever it was doing. We'd always be down there and play. So I got a lot of experience. Of course, I had a goal up at my house in which I played all the time. So we were Rock Bridge, and everybody knew about Rock Bridge.
Yeah. You mentioned it was Joe Harrison Carter. Everybody is familiar with that being the name of the elementary school on that end of the county now. And I'm old enough to remember his son Leslie So, and now was Joe Harrison, he was also in education, wasn't he, at that time?
Joe Harrison was my teacher at Maryville Elementary School. I went to Maryville Elementary School, first grade through eighth grade. And Joe Harrison was one of my teachers. I think I had Joe Harrison and Ori Babby and maybe one other teacher. But Joe Harrison, we used to play softball. We go around playing the schools in softball. And so we get in his old car that he had back then, and we would drive to the schools on Fridays, and we'd have ball games. So we were pretty good. He had a good team, and but I got to thinking one time we never did play basketball, but it was always softball that we played at the against all the other schools. But back then, you primarily, if you was out in the country, you'd go 1 through 8.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really start playing organized basketball and football and all the sports until I got to Tompkinsville. And then that's when, of course, I had a pretty good background in it. And, of course, I pretty much excelled when I was a freshman, and I did play varsity in football and basketball, and of course I played baseball and track, and that's about all the sports we had at Tompkinsville back then.
You played them all.
Played them all.
And when you got to Tompkinsville, of course, in the early 50s, we had success. Leslie was on that team in the early 50s that went to the state tournament. Were you old enough to remember Leslie Carter playing and Towhead and some of that bunch?
Oh yeah, I remember.
50s?
I remember them. I remember Towhead McMurtry and Paul Bowman.
Yeah.
I think Paul Bowman. They'd been in the Army or something, and they'd come back out of the Army, and there's big time. I mean, people were really excited in Tompkinsville, and I believe we're at 51, 52, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember it, and I was, I don't know how old I was, but I do remember I was excited about it, and everybody was really excited then about their team going to the state tournament.
Yeah, I was looking in this book. I'm going to try to find who they played in the first round. 1950, we played Central City in the 1950 state tournament, and we lost 60-51 in the first round game. And they went on and got third place in that tournament. Yeah.
I know they were really good.
Central City did, yeah.
Yeah, and Towhead got a lot of publicity back then, and yeah, we seemed like everybody, that was a big deal back then. I don't know how it is now. I know when Pleasure Ridge, where I was principal, when we went to state tournament, it was a great big deal then too. So going to state tournament is really something good, and it gives the school good publicity, and so yeah, I remember that team, or I remember about them, and of course we got the Tompkinsville News back then, and so we got to read about it and all.
Yeah.
So.
And as you got to high school, then the coach on that 1957 team, we'll begin by talking about the coach, and then we'll go down through there and talk about some of your teammates. The head coach was John Conkin Mars, and his assistant was Cecil Pettit. So of course the Pettit family we know. Unfortunately, Mr. Mars was killed in the mid '60s in an auto accident. But talk a little bit. We'll start with Coach Pettit. He was the assistant. What do you remember about Coach Cecil Pettit?
I remember about Coach Pettit. I remember he was one that kind of kept you calm down, and of course Coach Mars, he kind of kept your spirit up and kept you going good. And I remember when they called me, I was a sophomore, and so they called me down at Gamaya where got on the old Blue Goose and went down every morning to practice. And they said, we're going to move you up to the varsity. We want you to play with the varsity. So I started playing with the varsity then when I was a sophomore. So Cecil, Coach Pettit, he encouraged me a lot and worked with me a lot, really. And so I started playing guard as a sophomore. I was one of the guards. And so really that team that we had that went to the state, we played together, all of us played together for 2 years before we went to the state. So we kind of knew what one another was going to do. And but I always had a lot of admiration for Coach Pettit and Coach Mars, because they really made you feel good about what you were doing. So I know J.E. and Brennis and Jimmy Ramsey and John Taylor and myself, every day we would work together, and all the rest of the team would work together with us. So it was a group of, we were very close, and we knew what one another was doing and when they were doing it. And of course, J.E. was known for his hook shot.
Yeah.
And as you know, one game I fed him the ball and he hit the hook shot that took us to the state.
So you got the assist on that play.
I got the assist, yeah. Yeah.
On some of the younger players on that team, then we'll move on. You've mentioned some of the seniors. They list some of the freshmen on that team. Of course, today, a lot of our freshmen and young guys, they think they need to play. But back in that day, they were just, I think, more or less, the practice squad, we might call them. Joe Pettit, it's got John, or I think we maybe later knew him as Jack McClendon, and Jerry Tooley were the freshmen, and the sophomore was Carly Bartley. You've mentioned, we'll talk about it later on, that those guys didn't get to play a lot, but they were part of, you would say, your practice team.
Well, they were always well satisfied. They figured that was their place on the team, and they were supposed to get us ready to play. So now I did play with all of them the next year, and they were Joe and some of them were starters the next year on the team. So that as sophomores, or they played a lot. Yeah. And but I remember Carly Bartley. I remember he was a good dribbler. He could handle the ball real well. And Jack McClendon, he turned out to be a good basketball player. And they all ended up being good players. And I believe that probably that I don't know our record my final year, but we had a good record. So we put a good team on the floor. Even after I graduated, they'd always put a good basketball team on the floor. So, and then when Coach Mars got killed in an accident, of course that was a sad time, and things began to change a little after that. So then of course, Cecil drove the bus.
Yeah.
Coach Pettit drove the Blue Goose. And every morning when I'd get to school, I'd get off of my bus and get on the Blue Goose. We called it the Blue Goose. Had the floor shift, and we would go. And I remember Coach Pettit and Coach Mars, they would get their coffee, and we would all be warming up while they were drinking their coffee. So in a little restaurant right outside of the school where they'd always send the manager. They'd always send him out after the coffee. So sometimes they would have to wait there. They would all be on the bus, but they'd have to wait on my bus to get there. So, or maybe another bus.
Yeah.
So so they'd always get the full team on there before they would leave, and then I would get back to school to my fourth period class.
So you practiced every morning.
We practiced every morning, and that was, I had 2 periods, and then actually I was always late to my third class. So I know I had Mr. Pinkley and typing, and I that was a class that I never did excel in, but it was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed it, and I did that all 4 of my years in school.
Yeah. Going on up the roster a little bit, there's Danny Carter, Larry Tooley, and then were you the only junior? They might have been in your class. You, Larry, and Charles then, or you, Larry, and Danny were I guess the underclassmen before we get on up to the seniors.
Yeah, I remember Danny. Danny was a good ball player, and he got to play quite a bit, and Tooley got to play quite a bit. But I remember Joe Pettit. He played quite a bit my senior year, so we did have a good team. And Jack McClendon, and we had Marvin Billingsley too on the team. I remember him, and we had a lot of people that came back our senior year, and I don't remember what our record was, but people were just so excited about the team that went to the state that, and I know Coach Mars and Coach Pettit, I remember we played Clinton County, and it snowed, and we had to stay up there that night. So Darrell Carter and them had to. My parents and all, they didn't have phones back then, so they had to get in their cars and go out and tell our parents we wasn't going to be home that night. So times were different back then, and people seemed like they really rallied around their basketball teams and their schools, and I don't know, I think more so than they do now. Yeah. But
the seniors on that team, you've mentioned Mr. Billingsley. We'll talk about him first, and then we'll get to the ones that played more so than he. Looking at the box score here, he maybe didn't play as much, but he was a senior. What was some of his contributions to that team?
Well, Marvin was good in practice. He played good defense. So those guys there, they really made them work against us in practice. So I give a lot of them credit for helping us be what we were.
Yeah.
Because they put a lot of pressure. But Marvin, I remember Marvin, he had a jump shot. And of course back then, now you don't even have a set shot like I had. And so I had a set shot from way out. And but Marvin, he got to play some, and I remember him subbing in every once in a while. But he was happy with what he was doing, and he was happy with the team.
Yeah.
Everybody seemed to be happy with their position.
Now you mentioned your set. Were you a sort of a two-hand set shot, and were some of those have been 3-pointers if they were shot today?
They would have all been 3-pointers. And I remember the Scottsville game, which in the region, the first game we had in the region, they their strategy was they was going to back in around J.E. and Prentice and John. And so I started hitting my set shots. I hit about 3 of them in a row, so then they had to come out.
So like pulling them out of the zone.
So they come out of that zone, and then we started feeding J.E. and them in the middle. So we beat Scottsville pretty good, and I was the leading scorer that game, which was unusual. And I forget what it was. It seemed like I got 17 points, and that was that got us started off for the game. And then as we went on through the region, why, of course, J.E. and Prentice and John and Jimmy, they began to get their points.
Yeah.
So I handled the ball quite a bit, and that was defense, and handling the ball was, everybody had a job.
Yeah. Let's start on these seniors. Well, let's start with Jimmy Ramsey. And we hadn't mentioned, but we will now, that, you know, all these, most of the gentlemen that were on this team have passed away. You know, you and J.E. Pettit and Danny Carter, I believe, are the only ones still with us. Is that correct?
That's as far as I know, yeah.
Let's talk about Jimmy Ramsey. Was he one of the ball handlers? Looking at his size, he looks like he might have been a guard. What was his forte?
He was an excellent ball handler, and he could score. He would drive a lot, and he could score. And we didn't play a zone a lot. We played man to man, and Jimmy always would get 10 points or more in the ball game. So he was a pretty good scorer, but a lot of times we would score like 10, 12, 14, 15, and then maybe I'd get 8 or 10, 6 or 8 or 10, and that showed that we had a balanced team, and they couldn't really guard one person. So Jimmy and I were the guards, and he was an excellent ball player, and he maneuvered around a lot, and of course he and I both, we could drive with the ball pretty good, and a lot of times he could hit, he had a jump shot, and people didn't do that one-handed shot as much as they do today, but yeah, Jimmy was a really part of the team.
Yeah. Then we moved to, I guess, maybe more of the inside player. Of course, looking at the roster, it said J.E. was the tallest at 6'2", but let's talk about John Taylor. It lists him as 6'1".
Yeah, John and I usually we were the least scorers, but John could rebound. He was a good rebounder, and he'd always get a lot of rebounds. And John was a good defensive player also. And John was a person that we had a lot where the ball would go down to John and then into J.E. or Prentice. We had a lot of plays where one would come over and screen, and then it'd open the other one up underneath. And we played a lot of teams that were a lot taller than us. Of course, I believe J.E. 6'1" or whatever he was, he never was the tallest one, or 6'2", I believe he was. And John was listed as 6'1", but John was a key player also. Well, we all were teams. I think what helped us more than anything, teams couldn't concentrate on one person.
Yeah.
A lot of teams you see today, they got a big scorer.
Somebody scores 30 points.
And we just didn't do that.
Yeah.
And but John was always a player that really inspired the team, and John and me always kind of worked together. So I thought a lot of all of them.
Yeah. Then we'll move to J.E. Pettit. You mentioned the hook shot, but J.E. It lists him as 6'2". And he looks slim and lanky there in that picture. Of course, the younger brother Joe on the team, the older brother Cecil, the assistant coach. But what about J.E.?
Well, now J.E., there'll never be another J.E. J.E. had the best hook shot there was, and as you know, in the final game, I think I got an article in here, we'll look at it later on, about the ball went around, went to this person, that person, as the time was running out, and the score was tied, and so it come to me, and I fed J.E., and J.E.'s hook shot won the game.
Did he bank it in, or was it straight in? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it seemed like that he banked a lot of them in.
Yeah.
But I know it went in, and we won the region. So that was a great feeling, and I know when we had our picture taken, all of them had something, and I remember Coach Mars said, Charles says, I had a ball that you're supposed to hold, and because every one of them you can see had something in their hand or trophies or what have they. John had the trophy, and these three made all tournament.
Yeah, they're holding their tournament trophy, and I guess this is the championship trophy.
And he said, I had the ball for you, and I said, well, don't worry about it, we won it. So I know Coach Mars, he was really a fine man. I just loved him and Coach Pettit, and as you can see, they wasn't a whole lot of difference in the size of all of us.
Yeah.
I was 5'11", I think, back then. Of course, I've shrunk a little now, but a good-looking bunch there, really.
Not a good-looking bunch.
Yeah.
That's right after you got big smiles on your faces after that win in the championship game.
Yeah.
And the last senior on that team was Prentice Stanford. Prentice was a good basketball player on up in his 30s and 40s. We used to play, some night games, and he was still playing, and I was out there playing. I think you played some with him at Lindsey Wilson, but talk about what his contribution was to the Bear team in '57.
Well, Prentice and I probably were closer than any of them, than the other three. So he and I we were at Lindsey together, and we were together a lot, and we went those years together up there at Lindsey, or he was there when I went there. So, but Prentice, he was tough. He was a tough ball player. Prentice was more all around, I would say, because he rebounded and he scored and he played good defense, and which I guess really all of us did. We had to win as many games as we did. But I would say that in looking at the team, I don't know which one of them, J.E., Prentice, Jimmy, or John, I don't know which one would be you couldn't say that. You have to say that everybody was valuable.
It was just a balanced team, wasn't it?
It was a very balanced team, and you just don't see that now.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at all the box scores, you always have 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Nobody ever scored more than 20.
Yeah.
Maybe some games. And but look at that picture there that you have today. Real good looking bunch. You notice the haircuts are real short, and everybody kept their hair cut, and your dad cut most of our hairs, if not all of it. And I used to get free haircuts, and to show you how people, I'd go over to the drugstore, we'd get free milkshakes. So people in Tompkinsville, they love their teams.
That's right, yeah.
And we would get, I know Dr. Jimmy, he the doctors even took care of you.
Yeah.
They tried to keep you healthy. So it was just a Tompkinsville thing. Everybody loved that team.
Yeah. You talked about getting on the Blue Goose, and you might explain why you had to do that. The unusual thing about your team, you didn't have a gymnasium in Tompkinsville, did you, to practice or play that season?
No, I remember when I was in 8th grade, getting ready to go, the gym burnt. Of course, they had them big old stoves in there, where they would play. But the gym burnt, and we didn't have a gymnasium. And so my 4 years at Tompkinsville was riding the bus to Gabea every morning. We had to practice the first 2 periods of the day, and we would go down and practice. And of course, a lot of times we'd get back and be a little late for our class, but that's unusual. A lot of people read about that. It's hard to believe.
Now, is that where you played your home games?
Yes.
What you called a home game was at Gamaliel?
Yeah, that was their gymnasium. The Gamaliel was, so Tompkinsville Gamaliel had to get together and make their schedules out where they wouldn't conflict with one another. So, but yeah, we didn't have an armory or anything back then.
Now, how were the crowds back then? Was it a packed crowd?
Oh
usually?
yeah, that little gym was full. It was always full, and all the old farmers and everybody, they come out to watch the team play. And of course, back then, in baseball and all that, all the old farmers and all, they would come out to watch the games. So I don't know where you see much of that now or not, but that they were into it also. The people in the community, they were part of it. And of course, I know everybody likes a good ball club, but some way or another, this was a special team.
Yeah.
And it ended up being special because it went to the state. And
you got some couple of newspaper clippings here that someone framed for you, talking about the regular season. Said you were 24-2. Now that's a mighty fine record. I was going to ask you about maybe some of the tough games, but it says the 2 losses were. Well, I read it there just a minute ago. Edmonton and who was it? But you just lost 2 games that year. What were some of the regular season games that you might remember that season that were memorable?
well, I know Burkesville was always a tough game, and but I don't know where Burkesville was one of the losses or not. But I don't remember Edmonton. I think we had a bad game that game because.
It's at Edmonton and Greensburg were the 2 teams that beat you in the regular season.
Was it Edmonton or
Edmonton?
Edmonton and Greensburg?
Uh-huh.
I remember the Edmonton game, and we didn't play too hot in that game. And Greensburg always had a pretty good team, but seemed like we played them up there. And I don't recall that game, but I remember. The games that we lost were very tight, very close, and but Edmonton, they had good teams back then. Burkesville was our big competition back then, so evidently we did away with them pretty good during the season.
Did Maribone still have a team in 57?
Yeah, played Maribone and Edmonton and Burkesville and Clinton County, and of course, we played Tennessee teams in basketball and football.
Yeah.
When I was in school there, so played Lebanon. Of course, Lebanon in football. I don't believe we played them in basketball, but we had good schedules, and Maribon they consolidated. I think my junior senior year.
Moving on to the district tournament, where do you remember where the district tournament was played that season? 57 when you won it, or?
You know, I don't remember. Seemed like it was played at Burkesville, but I don't remember, and I can't remember who we played. I know Burkesville was one of the teams that we had to beat, and they were good that year, and but we did away with them, and we won our district pretty easy, the best I recall. And then when we went to the region, we started playing the teams there. So
where was the region played that year? Of course, this is before the days of, we now go to Diddle Arena. Everybody's familiar with Diddle Arena, but this is a few years before Diddle Arena.
I think it was played at Bowling Green High.
Center Street or somewhere there.
Somewhere there. So that it shows here, but I think it was at Bowling Green. I'm almost sure it was there because, and you know, the gym was full. The gym was full every game down there. So, and we had everybody from Tompkinsville. Just about, they just closed the streets up down there because everybody in Tompkinsville followed the team. So those are good memories to have because everybody knew who you were, and they knew who you played for and how many games you'd won, and it was a good time. And
there's one of the region wins that says we beat Bowling Green, so we would have been playing them on their own home court then in the region tournament. It's at 54-49.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had an outstanding team.
Yeah, that was, I believe, the final game, wasn't it? Yeah. That we won the.
Of course, I think in one of the games that we played, was it Warren County? In one of the, I should have got the box scores who we played in the district in the region, but I did not.
I've got them in here somewhere, but but I noticed a lot of old pictures.
Yeah, there's the schedule I see right there.
Yeah, there's one of our schedules, and my mother saved all this stuff, and there's my dad used to deposit when I worked construction. He'd deposit, and this was what year was this here?
That was 60-61. So that
yeah,
was
that's not when I was playing there. Here's another one.
59 and 60.
Yeah, that's the year after I left.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess there's my graduating class, and there's all the Rock Bridge buddies, and here's Cecil, and here's our manager Hedrick, and that's John Conkin.
Mr. Mars, yeah.
And that's the Prentice and John Kelly Murphy, and boy, I'm all decked out there in my white coat. And Baxter, Cecil Lyons, we were all buddies back then, so we got her. That must be at one of the. That's Lindsey Wilson. I noticed something here that this is my graduation, elementary. That's my elementary diploma I happen to see, so, Maryville.
Maryville, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, of course, Darrell Carter was superintendent then, and Ori Babby was my teacher. So those were.
There's where they brought you back to as a reunion of that 57 team. This was in '87, and it. I'm pretty sure I was at that game.
I don't believe Jimmy Ramsey was there.
When they brought you back, but it mentions that it was the regional semifinal game, 57-55 over Warren County, and
that's when
that's
Jay
the hook
hit
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It said when you reenacted it there in 1987, it didn't go in that time. It says, but it went in when it counted. We beat Warren County 57-55, and that says that was the semifinal.
Yeah, there's another. There's John.
Yeah.
Basketball results.
And that's the same. That's the one that you got here in the frame when we beat Bowling Green 54-49.
Yeah.
And I guess that was the championship game, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
He's talking here about one of their most memorable, the Bowling Green High team. So I guess we beat a pretty good team there, didn't we?
Yeah, you disappointed them.
Talks about the three that made our region from Tompkinsville. And Yep.
So that win over, Warren County in the semifinals and Bowling Green in the final, I guess you might say the country boys went and beat the city boys.
They beat them, that's right. There's Moon Man again.
Yeah.
And Tompkinsville 5 has unbeaten mark.
Yeah. That was in January. You still hadn't lost a game. So,
No.
Yeah.
There's Prentice and all of them. Now my mother saved all this. Can you imagine that?
Playing against Scottsville. And you'd mentioned that we beat Scottsville, I guess, in the first game. And of course, we're accustomed, in my lifetime, we've always been in the 4th region, but that was in the 5th region at that time.
Yeah. And that's where we beat Scottsville.
Yeah.
That's a game where Jim lives Tompkinsville for good practice.
So, yeah, that game 86-55.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah, that was a game I had a good game in. And then
But you had 17, Ramsey 16, Stanford 15, Taylor 13, Pettit 14. So that's the balance that we talked about.
Yeah, we always had it. And this is a pretty good article here. It said we do a whole over practice outdoors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was as you were getting ready to go to the state tournament.
Yeah, and then it talks here about our fans. Yeah. You can take those articles and read over them if you want to. And Did you ever know John Cosby? John,
No.
that was Betty Joe's brother. And Burrs win 5th region. A lot of good. I read a lot of this, and
Now, when you went on up to, and I think that may have been some of the first games ever played in Freedom Hall. When you went on up to Louisville, did you travel the day before, and how did you get to Louisville? Where did you stay up there?
we stayed in the Kentucky Hotel, at best I recall. And I remember Darrell Carter. He told them to cook us some beans. We needed beans, so and I remember going out to well, let's see, Freedom Hall, that Louisville.
Yeah.
Up to Louisville. We stayed in
Yeah.
Kentucky Hotel, and I remember going out there. Our crowd was way up in a little old corner up there, and it was the dangest feeling ever was. But it was so big, and we never played in a. So and Davis County was good size, and they were good. They were good. I mean, but they depended on Crosby and who was it?
Roscoe.
Roscoe.
Yeah.
They were the two people that did all the scoring for us. So, but we played pretty well. We got beat 10 points. And
Did you have any knowledge of them? Today we can watch the games. They trade videos of games and scouting. Did you have any knowledge of them before you went up there?
Then even we knew who we were playing, and I guess we knew of those 2 good ball players. But other than that, no,
Yeah.
no, you didn't. And then this is Burrs end season by losing to Davis County. Local bad. Burrs had 2 more games. I don't know. Boy, she kept everything here.
We were looking at the box score of that game. At halftime, well, at the end of the first quarter, 10-10. At halftime, 23-21. So
Yeah.
so you weren't intimidated.
No, we played with them. Best I recall, we had the foul at the end, and that they made their free throw. So that's what. Otherwise, it wasn't that big a gap.
Yeah.
We played with them the whole ball game, and
yeah, it was a 6-point. I guess a 6-point deficit going to the fourth quarter, and you mentioned Crosley and Roscoe. Looks like Crosley had 18 points and Roscoe 15 points.
yeah, there's an article about.
Yeah. More lives than a cat in overtime semifinal.
Yeah.
So that let's see, was that the?
So evidently we did go in overtime here. There's a
Okay.
57-55.
Okay, that was with the.
That's a hook shot.
That was the hook shot game beating Warren County.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says J.E. had 20 in that game, Ramsey 16, and Stanford 15 in that game.
Yeah.
And you talked about that, I think, before, not maybe before we started recording, looking at these box scores. It's just you 5. And you that I guess late in the season in the tournament, not a lot of substitution. Were you pretty worn out at the end of those games?
No, best I recall, they run us quite a bit down there. We would at the end we would run everybody back and forth in the gym, but I never did. I don't remember even getting tired, but because we played so well that we wasn't supposed to get tired. You know, that was and I stole the ball quite a bit and passed the ball inside quite a bit, and then if they backed off, I could hit that set shot pretty good. So they had to stay out on me. And Jimmy could drive around them too, so they kind of had to stay back on him because Jimmy had a jump shot he could hit. So yeah, I noticed she kept my graduation pictures here too. We were pretty high class.
Yeah.
And what's this here? Oh,
that's when you were.
That's when I graduated from
Lindsay.
Yeah. That school really was what I needed. And there, Burrs prepare for football opening. And so we played Monterey, Tennessee, Danville, Lebanon, Glasgow, Somerset, Livingston, Salina, Fort Knox, Lafayette, and Russell. We played pretty good schedule, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was reading a little bit that article on the Warren County game. It sort of gives a rundown with time. It was looks like a nip and tuck game, but they got ahead. It says they were up 55-51, but then they didn't score again. We scored the last 6 points to win that. They said they took an ill-advised shot. J.E. got the rebound, threw it down to Prentice to tie the game, and then as you mentioned, the hook shot that everybody remembers, and to win it, when you fed J.E. and he laid
he put that big
hook shot in.
And as the shot went in the air, I think the buzzer sounded. I don't.
Yeah. There's when we tied it, the Dragons promptly lost the ball on the throw-in. Tompkinsville stalled for the last shot, which Pettit took in the last second to end it.
I think I stole the ball on the throw-in, and then we passed it around, and then it goes into J.E., and I imagine that took some real good thinking and ball handling, so we were good.
Yeah, of course, you know, in our day and time now, and how did they do that back then? Today they'd probably called a timeout. Well, let's draw up a play. Here's what we're going to do. But you guys, you knew what to do.
We knew, and we knew it was going to go to J.E.
Yeah.
And so he broke up. He would break up to about the foul line, and then you feed him. They had to stay behind him. They couldn't guard that hook shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. You don't see that hook shot anymore. So he, that was really.
He had the hook shot before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made it famous.
Yeah. Let me see what I've got in here. Some of this stuff, if you want to take it and read it, no telling. There's my football picture.
There's your football picture.
I bet I've got some more. I don't know what to mean to that with that.
It's talking about getting ready to go to the state tournament.
There's their schedule. 57, 58.
Yeah.
No, that's my senior year.
it talks about the band making the trip, and it lists all the businesses that were sponsoring that so that they could make that trip to go up there. And one of them you mentioned helped you be one of the best dressed boys in school. Miller's Menswear was one of the sponsors to get the band to allow them to make the trip.
Old George. Well, I noticed here, my senior year, we still was playing Marybone and Austin Tracy.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, it was about 74 or so when Barron County consolidated.
And we played that SKAC conference tournament. That's at Campbellsville. We played Cumberland County, Clinton County, Medcape, Temple Hill. We was playing Temple Hill then too, so that's 1958. And there's when I played football at Western, I guess the schedule. '60, yep. Who did we play? Southeast, East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, Austin P, Louisville. We played Louisville that year. I remember playing them. Lindsey Wilson, that's their schedule there.
Now, while you got that Lindsey schedule, you know, on that team, that 57 team, I know of you and J.E. and Prentice all played some college ball. I know I saw it when you were inducted in the Hall of Fame. You and Prentice were up there at Lindsey, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And did J.E. play? Did he play
No.
some? Or did he?
No, I don't.
Did he go play a little bit somewhere?
You know, I don't know. I wouldn't doubt what he did. Because he did, where did he graduate from?
I'm not sure that he finished anywhere, but it seemed like he played some college basketball after.
Prentice and I were a little closer than afterwards. We were still close.
Now at that time, Lindsey was just a 2-year school, or was it?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
It's 2 years. Oh, that's Tompkinsville High School.
Yeah, that's your graduation in '58.
Yeah, there it is. That's my senior picture too. Boy, I'm a funny looking character there.
Our hair color's changed a little bit from those days, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. Here's, there's pictures of basketball. There's the football team. We were pretty dang good in football too. You know, Cecil, he helped out with football also. There's him and Clifton Carter, the two coaches in football. What's this?
Yeah, that's your PRP days.
Yeah, Hall of Fame. 1980 to 205. That's a long time to be a principal, isn't it? That's a Lindsey Wilson, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's the picture I'd seen that had you and Prentice in it.
Yeah. There I am. There's Prentice.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of Prentice. Western Kentucky. It's hard to make out who's playing here, I guess. There's the Tompkinsville team.
That's a good color picture of the old football team.
Tompkinsville High School, there it is. That's the diploma.
That proved that you got out of high school.
Yeah. Randall Grider and let's see, who's the chairman of the county board?
Is that Tim Lee?
Yeah,
Looks like
that's who that is,
Tim
Tim Lee, yeah. He used to doctor me all through high school.
And Darrell was superintendent.
Yeah, that was a crew, now, I can tell you, eh? That's you've got that picture, hadn't you?
Yeah, that's the picture. March the 14th of 57.
Yep.
Or that was when it came out in the paper, the region championship team.
PRP Athletic Hall of Fame. I don't see my picture. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Oh, here's an old,
That's a football program.
yeah, 56. Yeah, there I am. There's, look there. You notice anything about us there?
Well, we talked about at your Hall of Fame induction that, well, now there's one. Most of you went without the face guard.
Yeah.
Here, he's a pioneer there, David Gerald's. He's got one bar, but everybody else still playing without the face mask.
Yeah. There's Miller's Menswear. National Store. There's a Hammer Printing Service. You remember them?
Yes, was that Mike's father?
Probably.
Bill Ray?
I don't know.
Was that him, or I'm not sure if that was him or not.
Evidently, that's when we were playing Somerset.
Yeah. Some of those businesses are still sort of, the families passed down to some of those businesses. I saw Richardson Cleaners and Yoakley Funeral Home.
All-state basketball team.
Yeah.
I wonder where my certificate is.
So that was from the Courier Journal.
Yeah.
That was your senior year in 1958.
Yeah. And that's when I was on the Board of Control. Let's see. Where my certificate is. Monroe County High School, what is that?
That may have been where they were inviting you back for the reunion.
No, I don't think so.
That's what they read that night.
I see what I've got here.
The last 15 seconds of the first overtime between Tompkinsville and Warren County.
There's my medal that my most athletic, my senior class. Look at that, it ain't even turned.
Yeah.
That would be worth something to me. Now I got it here in a no telling what we'd like to pull out of here. Okay, that's football opening.
Yeah, that's football in the fall of 57. That was your senior year.
This is from John.
John Taylor.
Yeah, he sent me these pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen most of those. That's against the Davis County. You recognize the
J.E.'s always got that head up looking, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He, look at him.
Yeah. That's J.E. shooting a jump shot there.
Yeah.
Instead of his hook shot.
See, John's in it for that rebound.
Yeah.
There's Jimmy.
Is that Ramsey?
That's John.
John.
Jimmy. J.E.
That looks like Roscoe there. Of course, Bobby Roscoe, we were talking about, played at Davis. He went on to play at Western, and I think one pretty good player that ended up with a good career there at Western, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
And of course, that year I think they lost the next game, but the next year Roscoe was back, and they were actually the runners up in the Sweet 16 the next year. So they beat us in the first round of the state that year. They beat us 60-50. They lost to Russell County the next game, 73-69. Russell County went on to be third place, and then the next year they had Crosley and Roscoe back.
They were runners up.
They lost to St. Xavier in the championship game in '58. So they had a pretty good run with those two players. Mr. Miller, we sure appreciate you visiting with us today and reminiscing.
You can take any of this stuff you want. If you want to take some of it, I'll take a picture of it. Or
is there anything we didn't touch on that?
Well, I don't know.
Any memories that you'd like to share with us about that team, or anything that happened that year?
Well, I remember after we lost the game, Coach Mars and Coach Pettit talking to us and told us how proud they were of us, and that we had really accomplished a lot for a school without a gymnasium.
Yeah.
And, we always took it for granted we don't have a gym.
Just the way it was.
That's the way it was, and that we had to go to Gamaya and practice. We had to go to Gamaya and play our games, and that's the way it was, and we accepted that. We never did complain. I don't know why we took so long to build a gym. As crazy as they were over basketball. Yeah. I guess because we had Gamaya's gym to practice in, and I remember that one of the things that we always were proud of, we were always proud of our school and our town and our community, and this was the pride that we had, even though I was a little old country boy and all, I had a lot of pride.
Well, you were showing me you still have your Letterman sweater from back in those days, and of course that day, when I was in school, you had the Tea Club, and there's sort of an initiation to get into that. You've got your tea sweater hanging on the wall in there still.
Yep, and I recall I got in my freshman year, and that's what you got as freshman or sophomore. You didn't get your jacket until your junior year, I believe. Yeah. And so, of course, Brenda Kirkpatrick, you know her, I guess. Yeah. She was the one that ended up with my jacket, so I never did get it back.
I'll have to ask her about that.
Ask her about my jacket when you see her. You know her well enough to ask her.
Yeah.
So we dated for a long time when I was in college, but So she'll laugh when you ask her. So she may still have it, for all I know. Now, her husband died, didn't he?
Yes, yeah. He did.
What happened to him? Did he have cancer or something?
He did, yeah.
Boy, that old cancer's awful. Yeah. But anyway, you know, it's funny. I go over a lot of this, and it brings back memories. And but I do remember traveling, and I remember. Of course, I was helping on the farm too, and I would have to quit early, and of course I didn't have my driver's license, so somebody'd always have to take me to practice during the summer before school started. But then once you were in school, of course, football you had to practice, and a lot of times the bus would have to wait on you. Everybody worked together.
Yeah.
The kids wasn't dropping or complaining on the bus. Of course, they had to wait on me to get dressed, or maybe another one or two. But you know, that was part of it. And now the kids would be complaining, I'm sure, that the bus could take them on home.
Well, they all drive their own car now.
Yeah. And now the city boys had a car, most of them. But the country boys, we didn't have a car. Of course, we had to ride the bus. But, you know, everybody accepted us at school. We were just part of the total crowd. So it wasn't like city and county or country and city. It wasn't that way back then. Yeah. I don't know how it is now, but country people drive cars too now, I guess.
Yeah.
I bet they have a hard time having parking places. So, but those were days, and a lot of times I get to thinking about it, and let's see, what did I put over here? Oh, that's yeah, all these things you had. That's what I sent to you.
Yeah, that was pictures for the Hall of Fame ceremony.
Yeah, that was about why I chose Western. Said I had a football scholarship, and I went to Elizabeth. That's the thing they got to give me down there. But yeah, it brings back good memories, but it's kind of sad when I think about just only 2 or 3 of us left.
Yeah. That's why we wanted to get some of your thoughts while we could. It's unfortunate we didn't do it while we still had. I knew Mr. Taylor real well, and dealt with him with taxes at certain times a year and whatnot. But sorry that we didn't. We would talk about it every time I'd go see him. We'd talk a lot about basketball and what was going on in Tompkinsville, but we never got it recorded. And like I wish we could have in some of his memories. And we hope to talk to J.E. and get his recollections, and maybe even go visit with Mr. Carter. And because
how's J.E.'s health?
On the boys' side, it's not been done since you guys went back there in 57. The girls went in 96, but we were close in 68, got to the championship game. We got beat by the state champion Glasgow in 68, and we've had some good teams, but a boys team from Tompkinsville, Gamay got to a championship game one season. Allen County beat them, but a boys team has not been back to the Sweet 16 since you went.
God, that's a long time.
That's a long time. So hopefully we can correct that one of these days, but it seems like it might be a little bit hard with just the size of our school, but maybe one of these days we'll get five or six or however many guys together like you guys had back then, and maybe that magic can happen again someday.
Well, it looks like we just kind of came together, and then Coach Morris and Coach Pettit, when I was a sophomore, they moved me up with the juniors.
Yeah.
And so we played like their junior and senior year, we played together. So their senior year, we went.
Yeah.
And that way, that they picked me out to be the other guard, and it worked out evidently because I was a guy that pretty good defensive player and pretty good ball passer, and I fed those people underneath, and they needed probably somebody. They knew that I would probably be the person they would need at the other guard, and even though I was younger and all, so they had a lot of basketball knowledge about them, and of course we all respected them highly, and never was any problems. And I remember Downing, when we played Gamaya, they had Coach Downing, and I remember I kind of, because the benches were right on the court down there, and I kind of backed out into it, and he kind of shoved me, and and I remember I turned on him, and of course everybody come on the floor, and we used to nothing happened, but we used to have hot games. I mean, we would, and I remember we was playing Burkesville, and their guard, I kind of went on top of him, and here come my brother, Joe Bernard Miller, and Robert Chapman, and Moonman's brother. Here they come on the floor.
Of course, they used to call it what, cracker box gyms.
Yeah.
You didn't have the big expansive
Yeah.
gyms ever. The crowd was a lot of times, I guess, right there on the action too.
And yeah, in Cumberland County, even the fans, sat along the line here. So now they got their good gyms and all, and times are different. Times are a little different, but
Yeah, back then, sometimes you go into a layup. If you kept on going, you might hit a wall or go on out the door.
Well, I
At the end,
remember
or a stage or whatever.
I remember when we played Austin Tracy, we had to go down through a hole to dress. Went down through they had a hole here, I guess you'd call it a hole, but you went down inside under the gym to dress. Now, and we played Austin Tracy and Marybone and Temple Hill my senior year. I believe we had that schedule, and Lord, they've been I don't know how many years, but I noticed Glasgow does pretty good now. But is Tompkinsville still in the SKAC football?
No, there's not been an SKC for several years. Monroe County was still in it when we consolidated in the 80s, but it's probably been 30 years or better since they had an SKC tournament. It was sometime in maybe the 90s. They maybe still had it in the early 90s, but.
Well, do they? They're not in a conference now?
No, at the end of the year they have a thing they call the Sky Conference. It's Bowling Green, Barron, Metcalf, Allen, Monroe, and we don't play each other to get like a conference champion, but they name an all season team. I guess the coaches or whoever vote on that. But it's not like it was. We used to have an SKC basketball tournament, baseball tournament, back years ago, and then your football games counted, sort of, didn't they? As who was the champion?
Yeah. I had some good football years. Baseball, I did some catching. I was catcher, and I played some first base, and then I played right field. So, and track, I did pretty good in track. I've got a medal here where I won the high hurdles, or I believe it was high hurdles, in Bowling Green in the region. So I don't know how the devil I did that. but they'd have different heats.
Yeah.
And you know, you wasn't too fast back then. I was one of the faster guys, and Lord, I couldn't even get close to what they have now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was my junior year. I gained about over 1,200 yards in 9 ball games. So, but we ran the single wing that year, and of course Herman Allen was talking to me about at the University of Kentucky, playing up there, and I ended up. Well, I got hurt my senior year then, and of course, they would doctor me. I would go to doctor, and I'd go to chiropractor, and they would work on my knees, and then I'd play on Friday night, and I'd be back again on Monday. But good days, good times, and I guess that's what's wrong with my knees now. You know, as you get older, they don't want to operate on your knees.
Yeah.
And but you know, I think back to our 1957 basketball team a lot, and I think about the way we all got along. Even the kids that didn't play much, they were part of the team, and they accepted that.
Yeah.
And but if you look at it, you've only got a certain group of kids that play. Of course, we had the Millers or the Rock Bridge. They always would feed in to the athletics at Tompkinsville.
Yeah.
And Leslie Carter and Bruce Carter. Bruce, I guess, was, I don't know where he's before or after Leslie. But Joe Harrison's kids, and then you had all the Rock Bridge people, and then they would marry, seem like they'd have, I don't know where they got anybody going to Tompkinsville now or not, you know, but.
Maybe have some grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller, we sure appreciate your time today. We've been visiting with Charles Miller. He was a junior on the 1957 Tompkinsville Bear team that won at that time, the 5th region championship by defeating Scottsville, Bowling Green, or Scottsville, Warren County and Bowling Green to go on to the state tournament. Lost in the first round, but still an honor and a great achievement to make it to the Sweet 16 and the last boys team from Tompkinsville, Gamay, or Monroe County to do that. My name is John Osgatharp. It's December 10 of 2022, and we appreciate Mr. Miller with visiting with us today. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Miller.
very much.
Thank you.
The Gymless Bears.